Welcome back to the Sports Business Take Podcast, your home for sports industry news. How are you doing today, Zach? It's been the
I'm
first
doing
time in a long time.
first time in a long time. You're right. I'm doing good. It's been a minute. The hair's growing out. I'm enjoying the summer. I got my curls in the back.
Yes,
But doing
sir.
good. How are you doing, Paul?
Man, my life has been chaotic since the last time. We met, and I'll give you the whole spiel in a second. But I want to hear about what you were just telling me about before we started. You took your first golf lesson?
First golf lesson ever. And
Interesting.
as a two sport college athlete, I guess you could say I'm a bit humbled. And I think this is why I've avoided golf for a long time. Is
Yeah.
just I am so stiff in my upper body. The looseness of it is so hard for me. But
Really?
first golf lesson ever, the first of probably many, the first of many hours at the range. Gotta get decent in the golf game.
Gonna
Working in
need it for
sales a little bit.
business.
We'll see. But I was
Yeah,
in the office last
definitely.
week. They were telling me, Creekmore, we got to get you on the golf. Let's go.
Yeah.
I was like,
I mean,
ay.
something you need in the professional world for sure. Like golfing trips are a
Absolutely.
huge thing to make connections. I know, like for me, the swing comes a little somewhat natural because of baseball, but I mean, it is completely different. Like you're not really stepping at all, which was different for me. And I feel like I always overswing. I'm decent at driving because it's relatively the same thing to baseball, but then not really at all in the short game because I try to hit it too hard because I'm used to doing that for baseball. So like I have no finesse in the short game at all. So I definitely got to get out to the range a little bit more, and the course. A couple of my friends work at golf courses, so I'm hoping I can get some discounted rates this summer to go practice so that I don't look like a complete idiot when I go on a business trip.
I love it.
That's cool though. That's good that you're doing that, and you'll get better too. Like it's
I
just one of
hope.
those things that
I hope.
takes
If
time.
I don't, Paul, I don't think I'll be on the range ever. So we'll
Listen,
see.
I was atrocious too. So I went golfing on a course for the first time last summer ever, and I was so bad. I mean, like just losing balls left and right. I think I had one left by the time we left there. I was slicing, I was hitting in the woods. It was ridiculous. Um, but yeah, I guess since the last time we recorded, I have had a lot go on. A lot of work, definitely. The day I don't know if it was the day after, but it was the week of our last recording. Mosquito just bit me. My screen's open. Hold up.
quick, run it. Get it close.
All right, window closed. We're good.
Speedy.
I felt that. Like now I'm itchy all over the place. So I think the week of our last recording, I had my UMass orientation, which was I'm wearing the T-shirt right now. It's actually a really nice T-shirt for an orientation shirt. Kind of nicer than the one that I got at St. Joe's, to be honest. But that was definitely weird because like the whole day was geared towards freshmen, and like there were like class of 2028 signs, and I was like, no, I'm not. Like, don't put me in that category, you know. But I did learn a lot about like the useful resources that I'm gonna have when I'm there, including I didn't know this was a thing. Do you know what LinkedIn Learning is?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
clutch.
it really is. With UMass, we have like free access to pretty much any LinkedIn Learning course just by being a student. I looked on like they have like the sports management page on the UMass website. You can go see these are the LinkedIn Learning courses that might be helpful for you. There's a whole video editing course that's like a day long that I'm going to take before I even get there. And that'll help me in my job, not just like
Yeah.
in school. And it has some stuff that I'm like really in need of help with, like Premiere Pro Essentials, Final Cut Pro Essentials, neither of which honestly that I have much experience with and that I want to get experience with because it's something that I'm going to need on my resume and social media. So like I'm super excited the fact that we have so many resources that I can take advantage of. And then the day after that, I did a scout day for Northeast Baseball as a freelance event for video. And the video that I put out for them was my first video ever to 10,000 views.
Oh wow.
So that was pretty cool. It has like 11,000 now. But
Awesome.
yeah, that was really fun. It was cool to see there were 21 college scouts there for like a club program. I was like, wow, these guys really do a good job of getting their kids to the next level. And then after that, I worked a lot for the internship, and we've been putting out some pretty good content, in my opinion. I think one of my favorite ones was, what superpower would you have if you have one? We asked a bunch of the bullpen pitchers that, and I've created some of my favorite highlight reels ever. If you want to go check out some of my work, just for, because I'm a shameless plug, paulhine.media on Instagram, or North Shore Navigators. Just look it up on Instagram. I think it's NS Navigators is the handle. Instagram, TikTok. We have a Twitter. So, yeah, a bunch of my work's been going up on there. And then really this past week is it's just been a lot. Monday of last week, my dog Philly was diagnosed with cancer, and so my family spent pretty much the whole week with him, and we had a lot of good time together. And then he passed on Saturday night, and the last 48 hours have just been really, really weird. He's with his brother Samson now, but it's definitely really weird around here, too quiet. But hopefully I can fill some of that quiet by yapping on this podcast like I usually do. But definitely a tough week for the family, and we're gonna miss them a lot. But I really have a lot of stuff that I'm looking forward to. I have some great ideas for the Nabs, some good content that I am looking forward to putting out. It's weird because we didn't get to know the players quite at first. We didn't have like a formal introduction on media day, so I've been kind of getting to know them as I've been going to more games, and they've started to open up recently and like go for my ideas, which is really nice. I did my first mic'd up segment with a player last week, first time ever, and that was really fun, except for the fact that I was sitting on the foul line and my camera got smoked with a foul ball. Absolutely smoked. And like it was coming from my head. I heard heads up, but I didn't know it was in my direction. I was out by the bullpen, so that's pretty far down the field, and I technically was in foul ground, even though I was like close to the line. And I just like I reacted. I went like this and moved my camera up, and it smoked the middle of the lens, and the lens like caved in. It was completely destroyed. So I had to buy a new one for like $250.
Holy moly. That's
Yeah.
tough, dude.
So that was interesting. But it made for a funny TikTok.
Oh,
Actually,
absolutely.
I have the video of my camera getting hit, and the video still came out. So I posted it on our on the Navigators TikTok, and I said like POV you're shooting at Fraser Field.
That's
And I thought
banging.
that
And I
was kind of funny.
unironically, I had a very similar moment because I was
Did you
shooting
really?
photos for AC, right? A ball comes flying out, and you know me being a soccer, like I have to get the touch on the ball, right? It's coming right
Yeah.
to, so I go lefty, control, goes straight up. My camera's in my right hand right here. Where's the ball straight go? Flashes
Oh.
right into, didn't hurt the camera, thankfully, but it hit
Okay.
my ball protecting lens. So like you have
Okay.
I have my lens and then I have the little protector on the top of it. Hit that.
Oh, you have like a cover around it, like one of the square ones. Is that what you're talking about?
I don't know if it's a square one. Effectively, right? It's a little circular piece that attaches to the end of the camera and it
Okay.
protrudes off the end of the camera. So if the ball was to come at
Yeah.
it would hit that and not the lens,
Yeah. Okay. That
right?
makes
Because the
sense.
soccer ball is
Maybe.
bigger. With a baseball, it would probably go through and hit the lens straight on, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I was facing to the side, so it came from the side, but it
yep.
caved in. It caved in the lens, like it was unusable. The video was funny, but other than that, I mean, I'm just lucky that it didn't hit my head. So next time that I mic up a player, I'm hoping either I'm behind a screen, which is what I was doing for most of the time,
Okay.
or I follow the player around and have another player with me with a glove to protect me if
I
if a ball should come my way.
love
So
it.
that's what I'm hoping to do. A couple of the ideas that I'm excited about. We're gonna mic up the pitcher and the catcher at the same time for an inning
Ooh,
to
I like
get
that.
the perspective from both of them. I think that's gonna be fun. I'm gonna mic up one of the bullpen guys during BP and have them go around and ask players to do backflips. I think that'll be funny. Um,
Absolutely.
well, assuming I might have to get the okay for that because I don't want to have any players get hurt during that. I came up with one the other day that was like, who would survive, or no, who would be the first to die in a zombie apocalypse?
Good
So
one.
just fun, just quick fun stuff like that. I'm looking forward
I
to
love it.
doing. Actually, like doing this internship has really helped me come up with a lot of ideas for content and like figure out how to generate ideas for
Mm.
content. So it's been good experience. Although I don't love the fact that I have to drive an hour and back every way through traffic, um, or every time that I go there. Traffic there is unfortunate, but it's okay. I'm getting good experience. How's your AC Connecticut been? When did you start with that? And
Um,
you moved home since the last time we recorded, right?
yes, yes. So no longer at St. Joe's. All the stuff's back home, relatively unpacked. It's been kind of awkward, and I spoke to, I guess you could say, my boss or one of the guys that I work with today on the phone, and it's like, well, it's a bit difficult to commit to things, and it's like, well, I'm away this week, then I'm back in town for 2 weeks, and I'm away again. So for me, it's
Yeah,
like, well, yeah, I want to commit to this, but obviously I have these pre-planned things, and I've got August, and I've got the U.S. Open. So for me, it's going to be like mid-July, but I'm going to be in there for the next couple of weeks, and then getting back into it and kind of figuring it out as we go. I don't have anything signed yet, but
for AC.
I don't no contract signed or anything like that. But it's been a lot of fun. Been able to work. We did all of our. I helped with the USLY registrations on Friday, which was a lot of fun. Just like picking up the phone and going and talking to people and helping people out. So I made like
Yeah,
8 or 9 phone calls in 45 minutes and right, banged that
yeah,
off. Been
dude. I
focused.
will say, like, from my experience in the Sea Dogs ticket office last year, that is like one of the hardest things to do in sports is just like talk to the phone or talk to people on the phone, just because like you never know what they're gonna ask of you, and you may not have the answers to all their questions. And if you've never done it before, like doing something like making cold calls,
Mm,
so hard.
very true.
Um, so yeah, that's good that you got some experience with that.
Well,
Uh,
I had done that freshman year. I worked for Cutco, and if you're a college kid and you haven't heard for Cutco, you're doing something. Heard of Cutco, you're doing something wrong, because
I
they reach
haven't.
out to everyone. So effectively, it's called Vetco marketing, and
Okay.
it's slightly, and this is conspiracy theory esque, slightly labeled as a pyramid scheme, because what they do is they reach out to college
Okay.
kids looking to get experience in roles and job. They pay you $25 per appointment, right? So that's the appointment that you're interviewing the person, telling them knives, etc. And they have you use your family and like family friends as a contact resource. So I'm
Hmm.
calling up like my uncle who lives in Indiana and being like, "Hey, Uncle
Yeah.
Dwight, love you, Uncle Dwight. I know you're probably not listening to this because you don't use social media, but love you. You want to buy some knives, right?" It's like, and we talk for 3 hours on the phone,
Weird. Okay. Yeah.
and then we do a 2.5 hour consultancy meeting, and I get paid $25. Now,
Yeah.
great,
That's not a great
but it's a bit
return on
sketchy,
your investment.
and it's a bit sketchy, but we'll say decent quality set of knives. No hate on Cutco; they do a good job. They make a good product, but maybe like slightly unethical. But I did do
Fair
cold
enough.
calling
I didn't even
and,
know you
and
did that.
sales through that for like 6 months freshman year. Did I love it? No, but it is a skill that I have. It's on my resume.
Yeah.
It's on my
Hey,
LinkedIn.
that's experience. Like that's something you can say that you did and you learn from. So that's good for
This
sure.
this is already an interesting episode. The
No, for sure.
Cutco episode.
I'm Yeah, that's what I'm gonna title it. We haven't even talked about any of our main topics, which I have a little personal connection with from this past week. But dude, I just noticed like I look so red right now because it is hot as hell in my house. Our AC broke last Tuesday, and we had a
Oof.
heat wave last week.
Yeah,
So
it
I've
was
been sleeping
ripping,
on the
dude.
yeah.
I was in the
I've been
office
sleeping on
wearing a
the
gray
couch.
shirt. I had to roll up my sleeves.
Yeah, man. I've been sleeping on the couch for the last week or so. It's
I
yeah,
respect
my sleep quality hasn't been great. But so our first topic, our actual first topic today, now that we're almost 20 minutes in, is the NBA Finals. So, not to brag, but we are the champs. Hang the banner, 18. It's over. The Celtics were the best team. Um, it was really cool to me because I got to go to one of the playoff games. I remember I told you about that the last time we were on here,
it.
and then watching that whole run, they were so dominant. And I actually, I don't think you know this. I went to the parade on Friday. That was an amazing experience. I had never been to a championship parade before. There were an estimated like 2 million people that were there, like on the streets of Boston, and I mean, it felt like it. That was one of the most crowded places that I've ever been in my entire life. The only thing I can compare it to is the St. Patrick's Day Parade. When I got on the train station in my town, which usually you'll get maybe like 30 people tops. On St. Patrick's Day, there was like 50. There were probably 300 people that got on the train with us in my
Wow.
town. Yeah,
Wow.
it was crazy. And by the time we're like the third or fourth stop, I believe, on the line, like it goes from Wachusett into Boston. And by the time it got to us, there was only standing room. I was standing, the connecting area between two like train cars, the little like
Yeah.
metal. I was standing in that um, for almost an hour into
Oh,
Boston, and we stopped to
in
the
the,
next town, and they let on like I don't know a few more people, and then no one else could come on the rest of the way. There was no more room.
wow.
it was ridiculous. I actually thought it was less crowded when we got into Boston,
Wow.
which was interesting. But we got a good spot. We got a spot probably about a mile from TD Garden, like along the parade route, maybe less, probably less than a mile. It was right across from City Hall, and somehow we managed to get pretty close to the fence. We were like the third row in from the fence,
Good
and
spot.
I had such a good view of all the players. Each player that was like a starter or like really important had their own duck boat, which was really cool. It was like a duck boat that came by with the individual player, which was really cool. Getting to see the trophy was awesome. Getting to see like the Finals MVP trophy up close was pretty cool. My friend and I started a Derek White chant when he came by. That it was just me and my friend that started it, but then thousands of people joined us. I swear to God, the entire street side that I was on started chanting Derek White with us. I
Yes.
swear to God, like tens of thousands of people, and I started that. And I looked at my friend and I go, "No way, we just started that." That was really really awesome. And yeah, that was a really good day. That was really really fun. But the part
Special
of the NBA
experience.
Finals, yeah, man. I mean, that was if we ever have another parade, which I'm praying. I'm okay. I'm only saying that so I don't jinx it. I believe we will. If we have another parade here in Boston in the near future, I will 100% be going. I was actually I thought it was lucky that we even got a spot because there were people that were camping out, like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, trying to get a spot along the parade route. I was also happy we didn't get caught up in any trouble. I saw plenty of videos on Instagram, of kids doing stupid stuff at the end of the parade route, like, jumping in the fountains in the common and stuff, which some of it was funny, some of it was not, But no, we had a great time. But the part of the NBA Finals that we're going to talk about today really is the viewership. So the viewership for the finals was down compared to 2022 and 2023, which in the grand scheme of things is not, it's not a huge deal. That's, 2 years. It's not like this is the lowest in a decade or 2 decades or anything like that. It was an average of 11.3 million people watching each game.
Mm.
Um, so what I wanted to ask you to start right off the bat with that is, and this is going to sound very biased because I'm a Boston fan, but do you think it was just because it was such an overmatch where the Celtics were so good that, everybody knew that they were going to win the series and nobody really wanted to pay attention after like game 2 when they looked dominant? Or was it just a general interest thing of the interest in the NBA being down?
It's a good question, right? And it's difficult, right? When I think about it, the question number one is for me, right? Dominance definitely comes to play a role in it, right? We think of right now, tonight, the Stanley Cup finals are on. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gone to game 7. Now,
Which is
somebody,
crazy coming back from 3-0.
exactly, right? Very
Yeah.
similar type situation where someone might not have watched game 4 because they're like, oh, well, it's kind of a throwaway.
Series
Or,
over. Yeah.
right, nobody wants to watch Boston win. Nobody likes Boston. Like,
No,
it's just the truth.
everybody
It's
hates
true.
us. Dude, the amount of Boston hate that I have seen on Twitter this week is so funny to me.
It's true, though.
Because they're just like some of the videos are ridiculous. They're like making fun of Tatum for like holding the trophy like Kobe did or something. I'm like, dude, let the guy just be happy. He just won his first championship,
Mm.
But that's the internet. People always have to hate on
Well,
anything.
it's
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is.
absolutely right. So I think dominance definitely plays a role into it. Where it's not that it's not a good series, but it wasn't particularly competitive. It wasn't a 1 point game. It wasn't something. Every game was what, and I don't know exactly the scoreline, but every game felt like a 10+ point win for either team. And even when Dallas won, it kind of felt like Celtics were like, well, we kind of want to win it at home anyway, so you can have this one.
Yeah.
So there wasn't
I was
necessarily
happy they won at home, by the way.
well, agreed. I think everyone would be. You'd prefer to win at home.
Yeah.
It's more fun. The environment's there, right? The city riots, yada, yada, yada. It missed a certain oomph to it, right? This Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals, people are watching Game 6, Game 7. Viewership is going up. Even though they don't support either team, it brings the neutral in because there is that, okay, it's a close series. This I want to watch,
Yeah.
right?
It's also an
Talking about
excitement factor with that specifically because no team has ever come back from 3-0. This could be it. So who knows?
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? There is a certain entertainment factor, right, to competitivity or competition, right?
Competitiveness.
Thank you, Paul. I'm making up words here because I'm having a good time, right? Competitiveness. So thinking about it that way, well, I think it definitely played a role, right? That answers question number 1. Question number 2 is, I don't think it's the sole factor. I think for a lot of people, when we're talking 2021, 2022, 2023, right, as viewership numbers seem to decrease, I think it's a misreporting in the form of, well, I'm far more likely to go watch the game at the bar now than I was in 2022. I'm far more likely to go watch a game with a friend at 2022. It's less TV viewership because I
Okay. I see
really
what you're
think
saying.
people are together when they're watching it.
I
I
see what you're
think
saying.
people are getting together, much like when we talked about the Super Bowl earlier in the year,
Yep.
right, where we said the Super Bowl viewership numbers were down. Right, I don't remember if that was the conversation or not, but in theory, right, if Super Bowl viewership numbers were down, I would say, well, I think a lot more people are getting together to watch the game. A lot more people are back with each
Yeah.
other, back at the
Watch
bars,
parties.
back at the watch party, etc. And I think especially with the NBA Finals and Boston doing so well, one, people don't like to watch Boston win. 2, people are watching the
Truth.
game together, especially Boston fans in the Northeast, right?
True.
There's no way college kids are saying, I'm going to watch the game in my room alone instead of going down the street to my buddies, having a 6-pack and watching the game and going off, right? Not suggesting the consumption of alcohol is a good idea.
Dude,
just
it's all
concept,
good.
right?
You're good.
Concept. Putting it out there, right? Well, it could be just competitiveness. It could be the NBA's losing interest. It could be the Americans are tired of basketball. We all know that's
No.
not true. I really think it's people coming together and they're watching the game together. And of course, there's the outside factors of it was a bit of a blowout and nobody likes Boston. Even me coming up from the New York area, I have a hard time with Boston teams sometimes. Um,
Yeah, we
but
haven't. It's interesting that we haven't really butted heads on that yet.
I'm Paul. I'm a very agreeable person. I'm very agreeable.
Yeah, I know you are, and I've definitely rubbed the Boston sport thing in your face time and time again a little bit.
It's okay.
So I have one. I somewhat agree with your theory,
Mm,
but I have one thing. So where I think you're right is there's more people watching it together now that we're out of the pandemic. During the pandemic, everybody was watching it, by themselves because they were separated. The one challenge I would have to your theory is that from the articles that I read, pre-pandemic viewership for the finals was typically around 16 million viewers or higher every game. To go back to the number that I said earlier, it was 11.3 this year.
right. Big drop. And that was
so I
big
have a
drop.
larger question. Yep, right. So I have a larger question to ask. So around the time of the pandemic, the correlation between that and all of these streaming services that have popped up, was very apparent because a lot of companies saw that Netflix is doing really well because of the pandemic, or whatever streaming service was around at that time. So they added streaming services during that period of time during the pandemic. Do you think that sports viewership is down overall, and this is an example of it, due to the fact that there are so many different streaming options now and things like TikTok, that people's eyeballs are just elsewhere and their attention just isn't as focused on sports finals or watching on TV?
I think it's a great question, right? And we've talked about it in the past. People today have far more options for their eyes, far more options for their viewership, for their interest of what they want to invest in, right? I could say in 2018, right, for example, all right, I don't know what viewership was then, but we're saying it's probably around 16 million. Me as a casual basketball viewer, do I have Netflix, Spotify, Instagram Reels, let's think of other examples, TikTok,
TikTok,
Paramount,
Hulu, Disney Plus,
Hulu, Disney Plus, etc.
Prime
All these
Video.
10 options where I can go watch something that's a bit more to my liking than basketball. Not really. No,
Not as much, not to this
not as
degree
much.
as we have now.
Right? Was there as much competition for eyes then than there is now? And I think the answer is no. Right? There isn't. It's a totally
Yeah,
different
definitely
scale.
not.
It's a totally different space. I think it really brings the question of societally. One, we know the human attention span has
6
shot
seconds.
down. 6 seconds.
6 seconds.
Right? I would say in
From what
2015
I've
it was
heard.
probably 8. It
At
has
least.
crashed. So our attention spans are much shorter. People are not watching full games, right? It doesn't happen often. People are wanting to watch highlights. They want to watch highlight reels, very short, quick aspects of content where they're seeing the best moment.
It's why I have a job in video.
Exactly. Exact point of social media consumption is at an all-time high and has really taken away from traditional forms of media like watching a game.
TV. Yeah.
TV,
I agree.
going to a game in person, all has been
I
massively
agree.
impacted. So I think that plays a massive role. And I think streaming services are a big piece of that, right? Because the aspect of, well, I can go on Hulu and I can watch Rick and Morty if I wanted to, or I can go on Max and I could watch something silly like Smiling Friends after a long day rather than watching a basketball game that I don't really care about. Well, yeah, I'm going to do that unless I'm a massive basketball fan, right?
Right.
Or even now, right, when you're thinking about it today,
Unless
the NBA
like if
Finals,
it's not your team.
right? Exactly. The NBA Finals is competing at the same time slots, and I don't think they were specifically with the Euros are on right now. A lot of soccer fans who might from the U.S. are watching the Euros 9, 12, and 3, rather than going. That's their sports consumption for the day. They're not going to watch
the finals did end early, right? It was Game 5. Game 7 would have been during the same time as the.
But that was still what, last week?
Yeah, Game 5
Euros
was
2 weeks ago.
Monday, I believe.
right? And I think
Yeah.
the clash wasn't there with the Copa America. If the clash was there with the Copa America, there would be even more for it. But clash is there with the Roland Garros, the French Open, right? There's so
Yeah.
much sports happening this summer,
Yeah.
right?
NHL
That
playoffs are
it's
going on
really
right
hard.
now.
There's so much going on. There's so much to
Hmm.
compete with that I'm not surprised that viewership is down, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of a combination of factors of what we talked about with people didn't want to see a finals that wasn't necessarily interesting to them unless they were from one of the places that was in it, you know.
And even a Mouse
Um,
fan wouldn't want to watch it. They'd turn the game off. I had
yeah, right.
I had a friend at
And then
school. Sorry, I had a friend at
no,
school. Right,
you're good.
he's on the phone with his mom. His mom's telling him, "Sonny, I'm turning the game off. Get in the bath. Enjoy." Right, and this is a
Yeah,
Mavs fan. Right there, you don't want to watch your team when you're down 20.
no,
Uh,
not at all.
just simple fact. All right, sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say it's a combination of that factor, the streaming services. It's a combination of all of the major factors that we've talked about. My last question about this topic is there a way that the NBA can get back to a place where they're creating enough interest to get back the pre-pandemic viewership, or that leagues in general can get back to pre-pandemic viewership, or are they just going to be outcompeted with the amount of content that is out there now that is just consumable for people at an instant?
Well, I think this goes to a bigger question, and it's a question that's been asked a lot. Does the NBA need restructuring? We've seen it
Maybe.
throughout this last year, right? It's been one of the highest scoring seasons ever, right?
Yep.
Teams are frequently scoring over 100. The last time that happened, and correct me if I'm wrong, I remember seeing an Instagram reel, and this is really deep in the back of my head. Of
Okay. Okay.
It's like in the 80s that was happening. What did the NBA
Yeah.
do? They restructured, added a bunch of teams to it, redid a draft, and made the league competitive again. Well,
Yeah.
realistically, does the NBA need to do that to make it entertaining again? Do they need to add a bit more to it? Because if games
Maybe.
are either blowout or awesome, right, it's kind of hard, right?
Yeah, that's definitely hard for me to have perspective on because obviously me being a Celtics fan, I enjoy being on the winning end of blowouts. Like
This is me as a
I think
neutral.
we had the most 50-point wins of like any team in NBA history this year. Those games were awesome to watch for me, but not for anybody else, or well, not for anybody that wasn't a Celtics fan. So yeah, I mean that could contribute to it. I think one thing that the NBA maybe lacks is they have a lot of personalities, but maybe not necessarily a lot of personalities where you get to see who the player is beyond the court.
Mm,
Um, and I think they could do well with a little more of that. Just guys that play and have fun. You know what I mean? Like just like a lighthearted type of personality. I think that can add like a star that has that. I think that can add a dynamic factor to any sport.
mm.
Um, and I'm not saying that the NBA doesn't have guys like that, but you know, I don't necessarily know that there are as many as there used to be. Um,
I think of Allen Iverson, and
yeah,
I do not see a player in the NBA today that brings a similar energy of just street ball joy that Allen Iverson did. Right. And
yeah,
we are in a very different day and age of basketball between the early 2000s street ball era and where we are now. With
maybe
eh,
Steph Curry. I feel like Steph Curry plays like that. So that's
maybe a
probably
little bit,
a
yeah.
decent example.
And I think of I forget who he is, but there's one guy and he's just a defensive master house and he just like runs the court. I absolutely love him. I don't remember his name though.
Yeah. Okay.
Like there's players that play with passion. I think it's just a hard league to manage right now,
Yeah.
because the NBA is very passionate, but there is so much non-sporting drama brought in by
Yeah.
a
True.
lot of a lot of the popular people such as LeBron, etc. And it's not I'm not saying that they should just play the game. I think what they do is really important and the way that they um, contribute is very important, but there's a
Yeah.
certain aspect of maybe the neutral is less apt to watch the NBA because the conversation around the NBA is talking about well, who's getting traded where, yada 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 yada, while the
Yep.
NBA finals are going on, and where's Bronny going, and all of this, and the drama around
Yep.
LeBron and his son, rather than possibly the
Yeah.
entertainment level of the league.
Yeah, okay, so you just brought up a good thought to my mind. So we were just talking about like the quality of the league. Actually, now that you're mentioning it, I don't actually believe it's a quality of the league thing. It
No.
might be a media thing. The way that the NBA is talked about is very toxic. Um, and it's promoted to be that way because we're in the age of social media where people are trying to give takes that get the most clicks and the most
Mm,
views
mm,
and the most attention on them, and that's how people in the media business are measured, is like being good at their job is how many views you're getting, that kind of stuff. So we've definitely seen a shift in sports in general where the media environment has become a little more toxic because of the stuff that's gone on online, and the fact that players can interact with the media online now in a different way than they could ever before. And I think maybe that's kind of hurt the NBA a little bit. Um, and I know it might get worse before it gets better,
mm.
because they are looking for a new TV deal. And also, we just learned recently that their premiere show before games inside the NBA, the one with Charles Barkley and all of them, is not going to continue. And Charles Barkley is going to be retiring, one of the biggest NBA talk show personalities. And a lot of people tuned into the games just to hear him and the others on that show speak. Losing that is going to be hard for them. They might take a hit from that.
Mm.
Um, and then what channel are they going to end up on? Is it going to be a situation where people are going to have to pay streaming services to watch NBA games? We don't know yet. And if that happens, will their viewership take a hit because of that? So I think that unknown piece of what the future of the NBA looks like and how am I going to consume that content, is maybe part of the reason that there's an overall downward trend.
Definitely. I think there's a lot contributed to it, but I think there's a lot of social drama um, that has brought a lot of turmoil to the NBA in the last couple of years. Not saying that the NBA isn't entertaining, right? It's one of the most entertaining leagues in the world. That's why people watch it. That's why people love
Of
basketball,
course,
right?
of
It's not a
course.
quality issue. Again, teams are having the highest scoring games in pretty much NBA history frequently right now. Could adding more teams add an aspect of there's a bit more competitiveness because talent is more spread out? Possibly, but there's already a buttload of teams, right? So you're just adding a bunch of teams
Yeah.
that don't make the playoffs, right? Is there value to that? Would
Well,
that
I
mean
think the
doing some
in-season
NBA
tournament was a
playoffs?
big thing that helped them.
Absolutely, right? And I think
We talked about that.
the in-season tournament, we were talking about viewership, and it was really, really doing well. And it's kind of ending here, and it feels like the NBA season's leaving with a bad taste in terms of viewership. And there's a lot of factors that contribute to it, and we've kind of touched on all of them. So it's just a super interesting situation. So keep
Yeah.
your eye on the NBA.
I
Simply
think
put.
we've gotten a little bit away from the question that I originally asked when we started talking about this, which was how do they fix it? How do they get back to pre-pandemic viewership levels? I have an idea, but I want to hear what yours is
And
first.
for me, it's difficult. I think viewership and consumption is so far different right now. I don't know if they
Yeah,
can. But
yeah.
I'd love to hear your idea. Let's run with it.
They,
Hypothetical me.
I feel like there's at least a few things that they could do to help, and one that
Mm,
came to my mind. I actually got this idea because I was watching the Red Sox game tonight, and they are going to have an alternate broadcast with like one of the most famous Red Sox podcasters, um, who I listen to religiously. But I thought to myself, like, I wonder if the NBA could do some kind of alternate broadcast that would, with one of their biggest personalities, that would bring people in to listen to them talk about the game. Maybe it's a former player, Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan
Would
would
be
not
able.
do that.
I don't think he would do that, but I'm just throwing it out there as there's no way he would do it. But like that's just an idea.
I
Um,
love it.
what I was gonna say is a big personality that knows the
Yeah.
NBA well. Maybe it's a former player, maybe it's a former coach, um,
Mm,
or something like that. Maybe it's a former broadcaster that's been in for a long time and that a lot of people love. But I think an alternate cast could help them get eyes on the product, because like I was
Absolutely.
just talking about, a lot of people would tune in to inside the NBA just to watch them talk basketball, and then they would watch the game after that. If you had an option where you could see a little bit of both at the same time, we've seen that work with the Manning cast in football. We've seen it work with other alternate casts in other sports. That could be a benefit to their league. I can't really think of. I mean, they've tried a few examples of it. I remembered I watched a Celtics game this year where it was an alternate broadcast with Kevin Hart on it, which I'm a big Kevin Hart guy. I love Kevin Hart, but
Mm.
I didn't think he was the right person to necessarily host an alternate broadcast for the NBA. If they found that right personality to do that, I think that could help attract viewership for them. What do you think?
I like the idea. I think it's a bit risky, right? Because if you were to do a really popular podcaster and then they just start talking all a bunch of rubbish, that could be dangerous. But also, I think there's an aspect of, well, you're going to pick a personality that's going to do well for you and they're going to be invested in it, which means they're probably going to avoid that. So I like it.
Yeah,
I like it a lot. I like the alternate
yeah, it
broadcast stuff.
definitely has to be the right fit for it to work.
Correct. It has to be
I'll say
the
that.
right fit, both for the league and for the person, the right personality, and someone who also has enough pull that they can get enough interest from that third party viewer. Where somebody like, for example, myself, who probably, I don't think I've watched one NBA game this year, right, would go and say, yeah, I want to watch that because I like listening to this person talk. So I think it's a good idea. It's a good idea. Well said. Well done. Good
Yeah,
hypothetical.
I also think, and I don't know how they would do this, but in baseball, actually, I do know how they would do this. So in baseball, there's the ump cam, right, where
Mm,
you can't do it for a whole broadcast, but occasionally ESPN will show the view from an ump. They have a camera like built into their uniform, so that you can see what the pitch looks like coming in, whether a strike, ball, etc., or see the swing of the batter from behind. Wonder if you could do something similar with NBA refs, where you could put a
mm,
camera on their jersey, and while they're running around, you can see the game, and you can make that an alternate broadcast option where you can watch that for the whole game. If
mm,
you could find a way to stabilize that footage, you would. I'm sure they do, or they have the technology to do that. You
mm.
know, I really think that would be an interesting option. I've always thought for baseball, I wish I could see the ump cam for a whole game. I don't know that exists, but just an idea that I had.
I like it. Yeah, we're gonna get on the Euros in a sec, but talking about the Euros
Yeah,
right now, there's people in the stands and they're holding up, "Woo, go referee!" Right? They're cheering on for the ref, and it's a bit comedic and it's funny. But I think there's somebody who would say, "Well, I want to make a good bit out of this, and I want to watch the referee cam the entire time." And if the NBA is having a difficult time with highly debated calls, it would be really important both for viewership and for the league. I think that would be a good thing. Um,
I agree.
both for film review, so you understand the referee's perspective and all of this stuff, where you're
Yep.
able to create a balance. But also, it's kind of comedically entertaining to some extent, both as
Yep.
a fan of you're seeing an on court view of what someone who is on the court moving and trying to watch the game would see. I think that's super interesting. Kind of like if you're watching from a player perspective, right? It's unique, it's different.
Yeah.
So it's innovative
I
and
was gonna
it's creative.
suggest at first the player perspective, but I realized like because of the amount of jumping that they do and stuff, there's no way you could put the camera in the right place where it would capture enough of what you really want.
Well, and
You
also what
almost would have
happens
to like.
when I'm guarding a guy and I'm skin tight, like I'm literally on top of him.
Yeah, right,
Like,
right.
you don't want to see
Yeah,
that in
no,
your camera. You don't want to see
it just
just
wouldn't be possible. Maybe they could VR simulate it somehow. That would be cool.
well
We've
in
seen other
NBA
leagues.
AI, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
But sadly, I don't think we've seen
technology can
enough of
solve
that.
everything now. Sorry, would you say?
I don't think we've seen enough of NBA AI in this series.
No,
But I know it's
I
still for
agree.
next year. But I don't think we've really seen it applied since it came out, and it's another
It
interesting
hasn't
thought.
it hasn't necessarily been applied to video as much as I thought it would have.
Agreed.
And maybe it has, and we just we haven't really seen it, or it's been more behind the scenes. But
Well,
yeah,
maybe it
I
has, and
agree.
we're just not big NBA consumers. I don't know.
I probably consume more NBA content this year than I ever have before because the Celtics were so
You
good.
definitely consume more than
Um,
me. I can promise you that.
maybe, but I know you're excited to talk about the Euros, and we're 45 minutes in, so let's move on to that. I think we've
Well,
seen enough
I'm
about
gonna
NBA
do my
content.
best to make my Euro segment short.
So,
In terms of the Euros, right? There's been very simple and effective applications, and there really hasn't been a ton of drama surrounding it. I think it's been a really well done tournament, and I've watched. I think I have watched nearly every game, which is kind of nuts to say, but it's more background noise. But also, I work in a soccer office, and I'm in the office, and we have games on
it's
all day,
always on. Yeah.
which is amazing. I love it. So to put it simply, right, the way the Euro's been structured for the last 3 weeks or so, we're coming to the end of the group stage. Okay, this is match week 3 or so. So teams are finishing out their group stage games. We're seeing kind of who's going to make the knockouts, etc. So it's really just starting to get going. This is the first week where results really matter based on where you're going to finish. Right? Obviously, you want to do well in the groups, but right, you don't have a cost. You're not out if you don't win. Right? Your odds are loosened, but you're not. So in terms of how it's working, right? Two teams go through. There's 6 things. Then 4 of the third place teams go through. In terms of third place, I think it's really interesting structuring. It's entertaining. And it's not something that I really see in the US system, just because we don't have tournaments structured in the same way as we might here. It's kind of similar to how the Champions League is going to work next year. It's going to be a bit different, but it's super interesting there. Okay. Most interesting thing, and especially because it connects to the Premier League and what we talked about when Wolves applied and did all the whole VAR stuff, and it ended up being a 19-1 vote and all
This
of
is going to
that.
be the automated offsides thing, right? That
Yes. So
yeah.
automated
Okay.
offsides, first time we're seeing it really, has actually worked really well. VAR has been
Interesting.
less interruptive. It's been more clear and concise. And I've been able to see it. If you're watching the games, you see it very quickly. It's bam, done. It's not we have to
So
wait for the offsides call.
So how do they detect that? Is it like a laser system down on the field where they can see if a guy's foot is over the line or something like that? Or is it camera angles, or what is the automated offsides being generated by?
So automated offsides, and this is my understanding of how it works, and I might be unclear, so you can double check me, research. You can quote me on it. I'm quite confident. How it works, you have camera angles. It used to draw lines. Doesn't like having a person go and watch it and then draw lines to see isn't as effective, right? It's something that's very simple. You could code
Human
an AI
error.
to do it. Well, human error hasn't been an issue. It just takes a sec, right? You have to wait for it to
Yeah.
be done. So you're watching the game, right? The offside is called. VAR calls in, yeah, offsides. They have an AI system using the camera angles that then goes and draws those lines 10 times quicker, right? Now, not really eliminating human error because it's a hard thing to get wrong. But realistically, been very effective, been very interesting, been very entertaining. We've kind of talked about it, and I know you've had your thoughts as well as I have of what does this mean for referees? Does this lean towards removing referees from the game? I don't really
Yeah, I
think
was gonna
that's
say, do you
the
think
case.
this will be applied in other leagues now? Do you think it'll be applied in the Prem or the Champions League or Bundesliga or anything like that?
I think it absolutely should be and absolutely will be, especially because we talked about it when we talked about offsides and VAR in the Champions League, right? Bayern Munich wrongfully disallowed a goal, right, because of other issues and referee on field decisions. So I think it'll definitely be something that's applied. And I really hope it is because it's actually been really good. And VAR has actually been really good throughout this tournament. So, yeah, one interesting point there. I don't know if you have any thoughts on automated offsides, and other than that,
I mean, it really just shows how far technology has come in sports in the last 5 years.
mm,
It also kind of reminds me similarly of the debate that's going on right now with the automated strike zone in baseball.
mm,
Is that going to be implemented? Is it not? They're testing in the minors. They're not. It's a back and forth debate. And I wonder if a similar debate will take place with automated offsides in Europe and around the rest of the world with soccer of should this be in place? Should we leave it up to the referees? How accurate is the automated offsides going to be? And
Mm.
if the computer program that's running it fails, how do we correct it? How do we get the call right? Is there a fail safe? That type of stuff.
Good
I
questions.
wonder if those conversations are going to happen.
I definitely think they will. I think you're on the right trail. I think what's different between the automated strike zone, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not really aware of a video assistant referee format that's already implemented in baseball, right?
Yeah, so I believe, and I heard this on a podcast the other day, so I could be completely wrong, but I relatively trust the source. But so I heard the way it works in the minor leagues that or in the places that they're testing it out
Mm,
is that they're starting to allow more challenges for managers. Like
okay.
managers can challenge a certain number of ball or strike calls per game, and they have a camera head that's
Mm,
above and that's looking down on it, and that can see whether it touched or didn't touch the automated strike zone to see whether it was a ball or a strike.
got it.
Um, but
So it's meant to
don't,
assist with challenges
yeah,
more than it is to correct
yeah,
calls. Right. Makes sense.
yeah.
Cool.
Don't quote me on that, but I other than that, I don't believe there's anything like a VAR.
So
Like the VAR equivalent would be the replay system that's in the MLB
right,
headquarters
and
in New York.
replays aren't implemented to correct umpire calls really frequently.
Yeah, but
It's rare.
those aren't with balls and strikes yet.
Okay,
So
got it.
that that'll be interesting to see. But I think the automated offsides is a lot easier of a judgment call than
Correct.
necessarily a ball or a strike would be,
Correct. It's a lot more cut and dry.
because yeah, for sure, because a guy's toe was over the line or he wasn't,
Mm,
and then with balls and strikes, so many different pitches can move so many different ways that they'll cross the plate in different ways at different times. And maybe it catches a corner of the plate at one point, but doesn't at the other point. So where do you set up the automated strike zone front to back of the plate? So yeah, that's definitely a little more complicated. But with the offsides, it's a lot easier to see clearly. Was he offsides? Was he not? It's more of a black and white call. And I think maybe, I mentioned a failsafe. I think maybe having sort of a replay room to assist the automatic offsides or the automated offsides would help as a double insurance that okay, we have a human eyeball on this as well.
which I definitely think they have. I definitely think that's how VAR is structured and how it's worked. And the reason why I think it's working so well right now, because if you were going to straight from 0 to 100 and you're immediately doing automated offsides without the implementation of VAR across the last 5 years, it would probably be a lot more aggressive and not as well received. And what the
Definitely.
MLB, I think the MLB is going to have a harder time implementing it because they don't have the same system in place. But
Yeah.
because VAR has been in place for 5 years, fans have been really accepting of it, and it's actually looked quite nice on on the television for me. I'm not sure what the fan experience has been in terms of that, but in terms of the sources that I listen to and what I've been listening, it hasn't had a lot of the complaints. Talking about your experience with the Celtics, right? Immense amounts of Dutch fans going to fan fests and hundreds of thousands of people all celebrating and jumping up and down and singing and all these great things. And it's a culmination of Europe, and it's a beautiful thing. And it's kind of really cool because the Copa America is now at the same time. So there's
Yeah.
actually soccer games on. If you haven't been following Fox, because they promote the shit out of it, for lack of better words, and it kind of annoys me how much they promote it. They have games on from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., and it really is impressive. Copa America has been a bit different of a game style. They've been calling it, I guess you could say, well, let's go and use the term briefcase and buster, and I'm just making something up here, where this is a
I have no
lot
idea where
more.
you're going with this, by the
This
way.
is a lot more grit. This is a lot more class, and that's the way that it's felt between the two. But it has been a summer of soccer so far, and for soccer fans around the world, it's been super interesting. And for sports fans around the world has been super interesting because the amount of content that is coming through this summer with the Olympics, with the U.S.
Oh
Open, with
yeah, yeah.
all the tennis that's on, all
There's
the soccer that's on, right?
there's
There
so
is
much
so
going on.
much to consume, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
amazing.
You
So
just
super
mentioned the
excited
Olympics.
for
I
that.
can't wait. I can't wait to talk about the Olympics in like a month. That's going to be awesome.
Random distraction.
Really looking
Uh,
forward to that.
one of my dance teachers who I had as a kid is a commentator at the Olympics for breakdancing.
Wow.
That's a
So we
real
have a personal connection to it. That's
somewhat, yes.
podcast guest.
I can try. I have to get her phone number because I was really young, but I wanted to connect with her.
Okay, so never mind then.
Well, I heard I was sad place to hear about it. But I was at a funeral this weekend, and I spoke to somebody who I went to church with, and was one of my teachers. He actually taught my sister in second grade. For context, my sister's sitting over there. That's why I'm pointing at her. And she was like, "Yeah, you remember like the B girl Trinity? She's going to be a commentator at the Olympics." I'm like, "No way! That's
That's
awesome!"
super interesting.
So really cool. Super excited. Random fun fact, but to finish out the Euros, I wanted to give my top team so far, disappointing teams so far, as really there hasn't been sports business news coming from the Euros, and it's been really weird because it's been done quite well. Like
Yeah.
last
Well, I
year,
wonder
last
if
time the Euros
that
played,
stuff
we'd be
will come out
talking about
after.
yes, very true. Last time the Euros played, we'd be talking about Christian Eriksen's heart attack. But great story, has a comeback, is playing still now, went and scored for Denmark. Awesome, right? Awesome story. But two top teams so far. Keep your eye out on them. Germany, Spain, killing it. Really interesting. Both leaving the group stage with Spain with 9, Germany with 7, playing really well. Teams that have been disappointing so far, both for me, France and England, who were both the bookies 1 and 2, top 2 picks. Right? Interesting here. Very disappointing. Now, usually both teams start out slower tournaments, but just haven't been impressed.
I mean, in a way, that's good for the event, though, that some of the underdogs are doing better compared to the top teams, because we were talking about earlier, if something is predictable, it's less likely to be interesting to watch. So I think maybe that's a good thing for the Euros, that some of the other teams are getting a chance to do better.
Absolutely.
I gotta admit, man, I'm fading fast. I have not gotten a lot of sleep this week, so
My
need
last
sleep.
thought and passion, and we'll leave it here. I heard an idea today about an Eastern European only. So we're talking like former Yugoslavia, the Ukraine, Albania, all these like really passionate small countries to have their own tournament. And if you
Interesting.
haven't, Paul, the scenes of Albania fans, the scenes of Slovenia fans, the scenes of Romania fans, right? All these countries that are really unique, but very passionate, hardworking, I think would be really entertaining and really interesting. That's the one that I'll leave it off with. Interesting hypothetical.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can create a new tournament to get around, there's going to be more eyeballs. We talked about it with the in-season tournament earlier for the NBA. I think that could be something similar for the Euros, where you have your own different stage of countries break off. That definitely could be an interesting idea and a draw for a new set of eyeballs. So
True.
I think we did a great job today. It was really nice to catch up with you. It's been too long, and hopefully soon we will be able to get a guest. I've been trying to message people, but as you know, LinkedIn is paywalled more than 5 messages a month now. So I don't have quite the money to afford it yet. So,
yeah, no, I wouldn't want it either. You're okay.
Yeah, so I've already run out of my connections for the month trying to get people from the NCAA and the Celtics social media team, both of which I think would be really interesting guests. So I hope one of them hits me back soon. But hopefully we'll be able to get a guest on soon, because we haven't had that since either of us left school, which is it's been a while.
We're lonely.
So yeah, for real, come
on the podcast.
Help support us. So thank you guys for listening. As always, even though we haven't been putting out a ton of content lately, try to keep up with what we do end up putting out. Hopefully, we can go back to weekly episodes. Obviously, both of us have had a lot going on recently, but hopefully, it'll start to clear up here as we get into July and August. So, thank you guys so much, as always, and we will see you next week.
Love.